Oh, hey there, my beautiful friend. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Lotus Life The Podcast. I'm your host, Rose Tautari, and this week is pretty special for me because it's the first week in a bit of a rebrand or cosmic course correction, if you'd like, for Lotus Life, which is incredibly exciting, but also equal parts fucking nerve-wracking. And for any of you listening who have ever put something into the world creatively or as an expression of yourself, you'll know the feeling I'm talking about, where you just know wholeheartedly it is what your soul is called to do, right? But it means a lot. So there's always a few nerves and butterflies involved. And especially if you are in that process of change, it's kind of even more so. So in the ever evolvement and, just movement forward on this journey, I'm going to be focusing this podcast wholly on human design related goodness to bring to you from now on, to really just get into all the juiciness and the epicness that my soul is here to share with you all, the guidance I'm here to offer, the teaching I'm here to share. So what better way to celebrate the start of this next level part of this journey than to share a little bit more about my own human design journey so far and how I've been living in my own experiment, because it is all just a continual experiment in this life. And I'd like to share with you on today's episodes just some of the learnings I've come to along the way. So a question I get asked quite a lot is, how long have I been adding human design and practicing human design in my own life? So in terms of first getting hold of my own chart and diving into all the things, because if you've looked at your own chart, there's a lot going on, and I kind of got hold of my own, just dove headfirst into all the things involved. And that happened really midway through 2019, so last year. But in many ways, I now understand that I was subconsciously, or maybe even my soul was doing this consciously, starting to live according to my design really over the past 3 years. So that process of almost, I like to call it unplugging myself, or, just removing myself from what my life was like before, sort of like before my, soul really woke up to what it needed, and I started listening to what my soul needed. So, for example, things like moving to a place where I live now, here beside the ocean in a very small rural community, and starting my own business, working from home and having complete control over my own hours, my own existence, my soul's direction. And interestingly, now looking at it, I understand that these are all the very first things in beginning to live in my human design that needed to happen for me. So whether or not I was aware on some level, or the universe just really was kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes, so to speak, to get me to do these couple of really important things to get me into the correct alignment with my design. It all happened. And if I hadn't been aware of my human design before that, at that point, or even now, the minute I was aware of it, if I had still been living in my old life, they would have been probably the biggest fucking things that needed to change. So it's really incredible sitting and looking at it now. And the really awesome thing is, because I know that this is what my soul is here to share, to teach, guide others on, and to really help spread the knowledge and empower other people just like you to live in your human design. All of those past 3 years, I now realize, were very much just the universe lining things up and getting me in the right lane, so to speak. And, of course it wasn't one straight, easy, effortless pathway to get there. Like, that would be fucking ridiculous, right? No one has that. That is the very human existence we all are here to go through. And there were a lot of literal tears and tantrums from me along the way. I'll be the first to put my hand up and say that. But I do know that my soul obviously understood its purpose long before I realized what was actually going on energetically. Or even you could look at it like my vibration and my soul connection to the universe, spirit, source, God, whatever you want to call it. It kind of had its own agenda going on, getting me on the right path. Meanwhile, my mind was really busy trying to rationalize and control and hustle into what my mind thought logically, and I'm doing logically with little bunny ears here, was the path I was supposed to be on. So anyway, fast forward to how things look today and my full embodying of living in my human design. So over the past year, life has, I don't even know really the words to put it, but completely fucking transformed for me. But so much for the magical kind of better, right? So I will say that it took me having to completely surrender to a plan bigger than my own to really start getting into alignment with all of this. And for those of you who've known me for a while, or if you've been following me on social media for a while, you will have seen this transition that I was sort of for a long time in this, I guess it was like limbo really, of being in the wellness and mindfulness and connection to the universe space. But it was like, I feel now that I was always dancing around the edge of the thing that I was really here to do and to be, and at its core, to empower other people to understand. So once I actually finally surrendered and allowed the universe to do its magic and do its thing, and to really just trust and follow on the path that was actually for me, that's when things really started to shift energetically. So let's talk about what life looks like for me, for moi, living in my own human design. So some of you might already know, but in human design speak, so to say, I am what is called a mental projector, which means my soul is pretty much an open book. I only have 2 centers or chakras defined, and this is the thing that makes a mental projector. They only have either their head, mind, or throat defined, and then nothing below the throat. Like nada, zip, zero, it's all white. So if you've ever looked at a human design chart, all the shapes that could be colored in, there's nothing going on below my throat chakra. They are all white. And there's only about 2% exist in the world of mental projectors. And in my case, specific to my chart, I only have my Ajna, or my third eye, or my mind consciousness, which when you're looking at a chart is the green downward facing arrow. I only have that colored in, and the other one is my throat chakra defined, which is the brown square shape, which is right below the green arrow on the chart. So everything else going on is white. So the first thing that knowing this about myself has just really allowed me to embrace and get fully comfortable is just when I used to feel super lost inside my own mind, like my own thoughts, and I used to feel a lot like a bit of a floating head without a connection to my body. Like that was what was going on for me energetically for a really long time. Like I was always really lost inside my own mind. And it was really fucking empowering to finally understand why energetically I absorb everything. Like it was really hard to, I guess, put into words because I assumed a lot of other people felt like this as well. And I didn't realize just how much more so, or how much more amplified this was for me. I just assumed that everybody else felt the same way and no one really talked about it. So I never talked about it, right? So like energetically, I absorb and amplify everything going on through all the whiteness in my chart. So like, for example, a full moon leaves me all out of whack for like the entire week, and I can't handle walking into a room that is charged with emotion, you know, if somebody's really upset or somebody's really pissed off. And so growing up, all of those things were really challenging to understand, right? And the other major thing that I think has been the real biggest game changer for me is even just simply understanding that I am a projector, as a projector energy type, right? So when I give a chart reading for someone else, I always say that understanding your energy type and your authority are like the overarching umbrella that covers everything. Like it is the thing that covers everything going on for you. And even just embodying and putting those things into practice in your life is what will, for the most part, really move the needle the most in helping to just shift things to be aligned and in flow in your life. And I truly mean that when I say that, because it was one of the most life-changing, like a thunderbolt moment for me. The first time I heard about the projector strategy, the way of living life as a projector, and understanding that about myself. And I mean a thunderbolt, like in the best, most magical way possible. So to paint the scene a little bit for you, let's talk a little bit about, give a little bit of background on projectors, right? So they are the newest of the 5 energy archetypes that have come to hang out and hang around here on Earth. And projectors have only been around for the last 230 years. A projector gets their name because the aura is focused on or projects out and into other people, like right into other people. And a projector's superpower, you could say, is being able to see right on into other souls around them. And it's unique for a projector to be able to do this. And that's why, or how, I guess I should say, a projector really gets to interact with you or the other people around them on a very deep energetic level. And I like to kind of say, like, sorry, we don't have very good boundaries at keeping our aura to ourselves. And projectors are also incredibly open to other auras. So it's like, if you imagine, you know, the old school lollipops, like the swirl of colors on that big round face of a lollipop, you know, it's like this constant swirl of aura energy, intermingling and just getting on into other people's energetic fields, and there's a whole lot coming on into our own energetic auric field as well. So because we are designed this way, you know, this is the projector's gift. They are literally designed to see into other people, and then they can use that wisdom to guide all the other of the 4 other archetypes that exist in human design. And so that's where that swirly, open, penetrating aura comes from and comes in handy, because that is what we need to be able to use as our talents to really just embody that gift of being able to guide other people, to share what we can see, to share our deep understanding energetically. But the challenge with understanding that about yourself as a projector is that you will always be interacting with other people on a deep, deep fucking level without even realizing it. Like, whether you know it or not, you are doing it and your aura is doing it. So, you know, all those memes and jokes about how after you've been around people all day, you've done too much peopling. Well, that is exactly what life feels like for a projector. And in the society, for the most part, like the other 80% of the world around a projector, because there's only 20% of the world are projectors, they, you know, that rest of the 80% of the world don't have that same issue with their aura. So understanding that part about yourself as a projector is so fucking empowering, because there isn't actually anything wrong with you, and you are designed completely differently from the rest of the world around you and 80% of the energy of beings and the auras around you. So that was like the biggest gift as a projector, to just even start to understand some of those fundamental things and kind of just know it's okay to feel really drained after being around people all day, or it's okay to feel like you just don't understand why you are so moved by something, or you are so affected by something, when everybody else around you might be kind of looking at you sideways going like, what the fuck's wrong with her? Then I wanted to touch on like what I guess my experience was like a little bit growing up as a mental projector, because I think a lot of this stuff we talk about in human design, once you've kind of done the work and the deconditioning and the, you know, shedding of old layers and things as an adult, it's useful, but it kind of, we all have to go back to our childhood, right, in some way, shape or form when we start to look at some of these things, learning why we are the way we are, learning the strategies and coping mechanisms and things that have affected us from our childhood. So growing up as a mental projector, well, for me personally, I grew up in a manifestor / generator home, but being around generator most of the time. So I spent my life trying to literally act like an energy being, a generator, which was problema number one. And this is where, again, going back to that conditioning of society, our families, who we surround ourselves with, or who we have no control around being around as we grow up, this comes into play big time for people, and especially without having that knowledge of how human design all works and the interaction between the energy types, right? So because I was in an environment that was incredibly loving, right? It was incredibly loving, incredibly supportive, but being raised as a generator or copying what I thought was supposed to be life as a generator, rather than knowing and understanding and being empowered to live my life as a mental projector. So constantly feeling inadequate because I was seeing how much other people in my family could do, how they could seemingly have all this energy and they could commit to lots of things and they could be out every day of the week and it really lit them up and they were really excited about it. And when all I wanted to do was be in my own bubble with my book and to kind of lie on the couch. And in all honesty, I judged myself hard for being lazy, right? Like I felt like I was faulty. And especially as I got older, I was super confused because I used to look at my parents and their energy, and I would kind of see this list of things that they could achieve in a day or a week, and they had this 24/7 work ethic. And I was so fucking burnt out and overwhelmed trying to keep up with that. And it didn't make sense to me at all, and left me with a lot of guilt because I used to sit there kind of like beating myself up, going, well, you're the child, you're in your 20s, you should be running rings around your parents energetically, but why can't you? And it was a real mindfuck for me. And the guilt and the shame and self-judgment would, like, I could lay that on to myself really well because, again, being stuck in my mind, I could have like whole fucking lecture conversations at myself in my mind about how useless I was. So understanding that I was a projector and that my energy is limited and that is my design, and that my energy and my gifts are like this valuable resource that I need to nurture, and that I'm not here to be the Energizer Bunny running around doing a million things. Like it was just the biggest weight lifted off my shoulders because everything just started to make sense. It started to slot into place. And then to add to the fact of being a mental projector, like, so the difference being that the mental projector part comes from the fact that I have nothing defined below my throat, whereas other projectors will have some other center or chakra that is their authority, right? So they will have their spleen defined, which gives them splenic authority, or they'll have their solar plexus, which gives them emotional authority, right? So they've got something going on down below their throat that is their kind of inner compass or their guide, whereas for a mental projector, you don't have that. So Ra-Uru, who is the man who first discovered human design, I like how he describes it. He talks about how mental projectors are the most projector of the projectors, right? So it's like mental projectors are the thin end of the wedge when it comes to all of the projector strategies, energy, traits, and, you know, it is really the most amplified in a mental projector. Okay, so let's talk about all the openness that exists in my specific chart, right? So to give you a kind of glimpse into how it looks for me in my life, right? So I have all this white, all the white centers below the throat, which means I am undefined in the G center, the heart, the spleen, sacral, root, and head. And which, for those of you unfamiliar with what that looks like when you actually physically look at a chart, it just means that those centers have no color, they're white, but they have at least one little red or black line coming off that chakra, right? And then I have one center that's completely open, which is my emotional center, or solar plexus, which means I have nothing, I have no lines coming off that particular part of my design. So all in all, the quick version is that because in my emotional center, I'm completely open, and all those others I am undefined, it means that I kind of have no, anywhere where you've got white in your chart, or whiteness means that you've got no real like self-defense or I guess shield energetically in any of those parts of your design. So that means that typically for me, I will not only take on board energetically everything going on around me, like the people I come across or the people I spend time with or the energy of the place I'm in, but I will amplify it too. And particularly through the open emotional center or the solar plexus, this is where, when that's completely open, one of the key I guess things to learn about this or understand about this is that you can literally spend your life going, I don't know what the fuck I'm feeling. Like, you literally don't know what your own, I guess, emotions or feeling about a situation is. Like, you're not quite sure how to feel about a situation, or you're not quite sure what to make of a situation. And what ends up happening is that you spend so much time absorbing and amplifying everybody else's emotions. So this center is where it's kind of commonly known that it's super easy to be heavily conditioned through here by society, by your family, by the people you're around. So it's easy to pick up all the traits and the habits that, for me particularly, I picked up growing up when I was younger, all the traits and habits that are centered around coping mechanisms, right? So coping with the fact that you don't really know how to handle things emotionally. So you don't know what's going on with all these emotions around you. So you pick up and develop coping mechanisms for people pleasing, right? For not rocking the boat, for avoiding confrontation, numbing behaviors, like abusing alcohol. For me, particularly, like that was the kind of, quadruple threat that I picked up in terms of my growing up and learning how to cope with having this completely open emotional center. And so it all comes from this openness, because it is fucking confusing being in a world where you just feel everything, and without learning or being taught from an early age how to have excellent self-care practices, how to have really strong boundaries, or learning how to put boundaries in place, understanding how to have constructive and healthy debate or discussion. That was a big fucking thing for me to suddenly realize, like, I had been left like this emotional sponge, absorbing all of the shitstorm around me, without any way or tools at my own disposal of being able to flush it all out of my system or out of my auric field and understand and come back to my own true self, right? So it was just being able to witness that and understand that. Suddenly everything made so much sense, and it was such a relief. And I think that's the biggest gift of human design often, is that, and when I'm talking to people doing their chart reading, it's just that relief of going, now I can see why I have been feeling things the way I've been feeling, or now I can understand where this is all coming from. And it helps just really, like I often say, understanding the areas that are white in your chart just kind of give you this, real simple way of knowing where you have to go first to do the work. Understanding that about yourself just gives you this real direct line to know, okay, I am white, or I am open, or I am undefined in these parts of my design. So this is where I'm going to have been most affected. This is where I'm going to have picked up the most conditioning from society or my family or the people I'm around. So it just is so incredibly powerful to know that and be able to identify that straight away. So then in saying that, for me, adding to that with having undefined sacral chakra or center and root chakra, that meant that I also really soaked up conditioning from society around me through these centers, all to do with the fact that sitting back and waiting isn't successful, right? That was the message that I picked up loud and clear as I was growing up, and that I should, and again, I'm doing little bunny ear quotation marks around the word should, work hard, right? Like that I should hustle and grind to get to where I wanted to go in life. I had really taken on board and absorbed that messaging and amplified it as well. So your sacral chakra and your design is the home of your life force energy, your power, your sexuality. And so essentially, because I have nothing there that is defined as my own and is consistent, so get this effect for me personally and for anyone else who has an undefined sacral, that when you are around other people who do have this defined, which is all your generators, all your manifesting generators, hey, gens and many gens, you again absorb and amplify the influence of that sacral chakra being defined in those other people, and they give off this energetic buzz, right, of their own life force energy. And that is, 70% of the world have got this energetic life force sacral buzz going on. So for me, particularly when I am around people with a defined sacral, I actually can end up working way harder than them, right? Even though they have got like their own life force, sparkly, amazing energy going on, I absorb it and I amplify it. And so I end up working way fucking harder than them. But it's a false energy source, right? And it actually burns me out because the energy and the fuel I'm using is not my own. And once that person leaves or I leave their auric field, I'm left with nothing to feed off, and I've been running on empty. Like, it is literally the definition of running on empty. The tank is empty, but I've been flooring it. So that pressure to work hard, to keep going, to try to keep up and keep the foot to the floor, that is also kind of the double threat of absorbing any root chakra energy from anyone else around me who's got their root chakra defined. And so this is also where the home of stress comes in. So the root chakra holds stress. And for me, any stress that I absorb, I now have the wisdom and insight to understand that that stress is not my own. I have absorbed someone else's stress or something else's stress. But again, I do absorb it and I do amplify it. So it's being left like, the best way I can describe it is without having the wisdom and the knowledge and the empowering sort of insight to understand how this all works. The worst case scenario, when you don't understand all of this, it's being left feeling like this emotional, stressed out sponge, right? That is suddenly completely full, completely saturated and heavy with everyone else's energetic aura and their shit and their life and their own experience. And without understanding all of that, it is extremely heavy and exhausting to carry around, right? And of course, totally not right for my design to be doing so, and totally not right for anybody else to be doing that in their life. For anyone who has got openness, they don't need to be carrying around everything like the sponge. They need to be allowing it to come and go from their life. They need to know all the ways that they can discharge, flush it out. Decondition is the word that comes up a lot in human design, because you're basically taking all that conditioning that you've absorbed or taken on and you are learning how to decondition from that. And it's a daily practice, right? So for me, I had to learn as an adult through many, many hours in therapy, working with a therapist. I trusted, someone I trusted and I clicked with, and then also working with life coaches and working with spiritual coaches. Like, I did have to unlearn all of those coping mechanisms. I had to unlearn all the unhealthy habits I had formed as I was being this sponge soaking up everybody else's stuff. And I had to learn new strategies, right? New ways of living. I had to find a new approach on how to exist in this world because, you know, you just have to sometimes go back and go, right, okay, everything I did know was not serving me, right? You hit this point in your life where you go, okay, this is no longer serving me to live like this, and I cannot physically, emotionally, cannot keep living my life like this. And this is where I know that for me personally, like, and for any of you that have listened to some of my story before, you know, I had to have those real hard stop moments thrown at me by the universe, like my hypothyroidism, like my adrenal fatigue, to really kind of take a long, hard fucking look in the mirror, right? And go, okay, I am the only person that is coming to save myself. So I have to go and do the work. I have to go and find these healing practices. I have to go and find these people who can help me and help me to learn and empower myself to be able to exist in a much, I want to say happier state, but it's so much more than that energetically. It is happiness, but it is at such a cellular level, right? It is just learning how to live in my true alignment and how to be in my just highest vibration and space. And it all ties in with that happiness factor, right? So, mind you, all of this work with therapists and life coaches and things, all for the most part, all happened before I actually first heard the words human design for the first time. But like I said at the start, it had got for me to the point of repeated burnout and overwhelm, and I had to hit my wall mentally and physically. So, you know, from that point onwards, I knew that something had to give. And it was, like I said, that I think the universe was really kind of just lining things up for me before I even realized. So whether my soul was aware of it and was kind of doing the work behind the scenes while my mind, my Ajna, was still trying to like control the show and tell me exactly what logically I should be doing or where I should be going and trying to overthink everything. So ultimately, once I did find human design, that was kind of like everything just became so clear. You know, it was like that moment when all those sayings, the penny dropped, the lightning bolt hit, just the moment of clarity, that I just had that feeling of like, I already know all of this. My soul already speaks this language. And so it was very, I guess, a strange moment to go through, to suddenly realize that everything you had been doing and all the work you've been doing was actually for this purpose that you didn't know the words to. But once you do come across them and you do find the words and you do find the energetic interaction, you suddenly understand, oh, this is what it was all for, right? So it turns out, going back to my own specific chart, my own specific design, with having no sacral chakra definition, so having an undefined sacral, I haven't got my own source of life force energy, right? So projectors, reflectors, what up? We all have this same problem. So that meant that part of my experience with learning to live in my human design is understanding that my soul's gift is wisdom, right? So the projector gift is being able to see into others, is being able to share and guide and help others with using that wisdom and using it in the correct way that is in alignment for a projector. So what I'm here for as a mental projector is to be, what the analogy I like to use is to be the bird sitting up in the branch of a tree overlooking society around me. And this is very true for any projector, right? That just think of yourself as being a bird sitting up in the branch of a tree. And the fun part is getting to share that clarity, that wisdom with other people, because all our gifts in human design are all here to be shared with the collective, right? We have to remember that we are all here to have this very human experience that our souls chose to come here for, but ultimately our gifts and our wisdom and all of our talents are here to be shared. So understanding that fact about being a projector and being up, kind of overlooking, sharing that wisdom was, just that enormous gift and permission slip from the universe for me that helped me to completely understand why I'm here to be someone who, that my soul's purpose and expression is here to be someone who hosts this podcast, right? Who writes books, who creates online resources, who helps guide other people, who translates human design charts into something that people can learn from and can become empowered by, right? Rather than what might be right for someone else, for example, or other people that I completely love with all my heart, and their purpose will look completely different. And their purpose might be facilitating workshops to help people, or it might be that their purpose is owning a business with 80 staff, and it might be that their purpose is speaking from stages in front of huge audiences, or it might even be helping people one-on-one. Other people will all have their own purpose in their unique way that they can share their gifts. And it's just that trust and that understanding that we are not all here to do the same thing, right? We are not here to be this homogenous single flavor aspect in life. We are literally all here to express our own design in our own unique ways. So going back slightly for a moment, and just touching on that strategy of being the projector that sits in the, as the bird in the branch overlooking everyone else. So if you haven't heard of what the energetic strategy is that projectors, specifically for projectors, should live by, essentially a projector will be in their highest alignment and their flow with the universe and live in their kind of highest vibe, easiest, happiest state by what is called waiting for the invitation. And that's how it's kind of known or spoken about in human design. And that invitation is essentially coming from the other energy types around them, right? So really what this is, this waiting for an invitation this is for the big stuff in our life, right? So it's not about waiting for someone to invite you to go to the supermarket to go get your food for the next few days, right? This is about the big stuff, the really important stuff, the soul purpose stuff, and, anything to do with obviously like business, relationships, life changes. So, and that waiting is about as far from the message or the messaging that we are raised with, right? In our kind of current human existence paradigm. We are told every day in the media that waiting is not a word to be living our lives by, right? We're not empowered to live our lives in this waiting state. And for me, I was very much living life at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. But, really the whole time, even though on the outside it might have looked like I was doing a lot or achieving a lot, the reality was that I was hitting dead ends. I was coming up against closed doors. There was awkward or painful situations at every turn. And I think, like I mentioned earlier in this episode, like a lot of tears and tantrums because I was super fucking bitter and upset about the fact that I was working so hard and nothing was happening, right? No, I might make a few little things happen, but it was so out of alignment and it was really hard. And once I found out, obviously, about being a projector for myself and the strategy of waiting for the invitation, again, it was like a light bulb moment or a clearing of the clouds and the sun finally shining through, right? That relief that my soul just all those years when I spent so much energy trying to push, trying to grind, hustle, and just burning me out over and over and over again. So that moment that I understood and really just energetically my soul straight away went, oh, I get this. Like, I know this is already like, I know that this is true for me. There was no questioning in my soul that this was right. And I just knew that I kind of stepped into my own magic lane, right? And I stopped listening. That was probably the biggest permission slip, was it just gave me permission to stop listening to all the marketing gurus or the entrepreneur gurus on the internet, that everything just started to flow because I was in my own magic lane and I was living life truly in alignment with my projector strategy. Now, as an aside to living our strategy for living life, that each of the 5 different types has, according to their own individual human design, we also have our own inner compass, our own inner guidance system. And I touched on this before, whatever you wish to call it. For mine comes hand in hand with being a mental projector, like I mentioned earlier. So it means because I haven't got anything going on that's defined inside me to make a decision. So my way of understanding, my direction, my compass, my guide, to know what is right for me and is in alignment. And in human design, this is called your authority, right? So for mine, using my own special gift of my authority is being my own, what is called a sounding board, which means in practical sense that for me to make a decision about what is right for me and to know what to kind of use my authority correctly in human design is I've got to talk it out, right? I literally have to be able to have a trusted group of people that I know I can talk it out with, but as a sounding board. They are people that I'm not looking for kind of a permission from them, or I'm not looking for advice from them. I just need to be able to talk it out. And once I hear myself out loud, that's when I know what my decision is about a situation, an opportunity, a potential change. That's what I have to do. I have to use my sounding board authority. Now, trust me, after over 30 years of wondering what the fuck about why I never had a gut instinct or intuition or anything, and I would see everyone around me talk about how they just knew, or how they listened to their gut, or they just had a feeling about something. And I was like, literally like, okay, I don't have that going on. And it was such a fucking relief to know that there wasn't actually something wrong with me, because I seriously for a long time thought, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, I don't ever have this. And I don't know. Like, it would get so stressful. I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to go there. I don't know if that's the right thing for me. So, and double that down by adding to the fact that I have no emotional definition in my solar plexus, my emotional center. So I didn't really know how I was feeling about a certain situation or any given thing in my life. So the relief of knowing that I wasn't actually faulty or missing a part, but actually I just needed to use a completely different tool compared to everyone else around me. Fucking empowering. Fucking amazing to know that about myself. So part of the unique thing about having a sounding board authority is that your environment is literally everything. So without being in the right environment, it will always be a struggle to be in alignment. So this has been a huge part of my own, I guess, experiment with living in my human design. And I can tell you 200% that it was the biggest moment of peace to know just wholeheartedly and at my core that that is one of the reasons I am literally so fucking happy living rurally beside the ocean, surrounded by nature. Like, this is my happy place. And it is so much of a relief to know that trusting in that has been such a crucial part, and just to know that I have made the right decisions for me, right? Won't be right for other people. It will not be right for a lot of other people. It would be the completely soul-destroying thing for other people. But for me and for my soul's purpose, this is 100,000% the right thing to do and the right environment to be in. So now, in addition to those parts that we've kind of covered so far, so we've talked about, just as a quick little recap, we've talked about living life as a projector and that kind of strategy of waiting for the invitation. We've talked about the authority part, which is how you kind of make your decisions. And then now the next bit I'm going to touch on for me in living in my design, this is the part that really, I guess, helps you to understand your role or purpose or karma in this lifetime. And this comes from the part in your chart that is known as your profile. which if you look on your chart is always going to be a combination of two numbers. So everyone's chart will have a section where it says profile, and they will have two numbers. And for mine, I have the 6/2, which the 6, the first number, comes from what is known as your conscious purpose or personality, and the second number comes from your unconscious or subconscious side. And so in my case, the 2 is my unconscious, and each come together to form just a unique way in which you go about life and exist in this lifetime. So, for example, just to give you an example of the fact that two exact same types, right? So Darren, my partner, is also a mental projector, which, just as an aside, is completely wild, because when you think that there's only 2% of the world are mental projectors, but again, there are no mistakes in this universe, right? And if I didn't trust that we were meant to be together in this lifetime, as soon as I found out that he was a mental projector from looking at our human design charts, I just knew that it was a real kind of divine aligned thing, because it is just, it's one of the things that I love being a mental projector, but it's hard. Like, it's really hard to explain it to someone else. And so to be able to be understood and recognized on that level really deeply by someone who can just get you at that deep fucking level. But also the beauty of us both being mental projectors is that we don't affect each other energetically in a negative way, right? So because we both have so much openness and so much whiteness, we don't affect each other in a negative energetic way. So it's really easy for us to be around each other and to spend a lot of time together. And just to understand that we both have such a unique way of being in this world and interacting energetically with this world. And anyway, I'm going to completely digress from my point here. But so the point I was trying to make was that you can have two mental projectors, right? So myself and Darren, but the profile is the bit that means that you literally can be the same energy type and have the same authority, but you will go about living life in a completely different way, and you will interact with the world in a different way to each other and have your own unique purpose. And so even though it took me a long time to get there, that was the point I was trying to make. So in Darren's case, he is a 2/4, whereas I am a 6/2. So it means that I'm a combination of what is known as the role model, but also the hermit. So what that translates into, and the 6 being the role model line and the hermit being the 2 line. And so if you had a 2/6, for example, you would be predominantly the hermit, right? So anyway, what that translates into is that my soul is here in this lifetime to have the connection between my consciousness and my voice, where I can share, I guess what would be called my ideas or my inspiration for helping others, which might seem really kind of like woo-woo to people, but it's totally cool with me. That's my thing. I'm here to share my inspiration, my ideas, my gifts for helping others, and translate that from my consciousness and to be able to share it through my voice, right? That's why I only have my mind consciousness and my throat defined. That's my gift. So, but the way I go about doing that is by following my profile. So I do that from the position of being the role model, which is to show and people how to embody, how to simply just be that in their everyday life. And so that means that the role model part of my soul's purpose is like, I get to hang out with you every day, showing you how I live my own alignment and my own truth through my social media, through my website, through my podcast. Meanwhile, my underlying subconscious 2 line, my hermit side, is the part of me that enjoys heaps of alone time to go deep. I get to go deep inside my own mind and my soul, and I get to go in there and have a chat with the universe. I get to get stuck in my mind. I get to marinate or think on everything. And that's where, I get this, like, leaning into that hermit side of me means I get the expansive, beautiful space and time and what I like to call blissful solitude, right? To pull together all that advice. And then my role model is able to step up and share and help and guide other people with all of that I guess, kind of download that I've been able to have through leaning into my hermit side. So, but of course, being a projector, all that sharing and guiding and giving happens after you invite me into your life, of course. So that's exactly why something like this podcast is the perfect way for me to share my role model gift with you, because I put it out into the universe each week. I share my thoughts, I share my wisdom, I share guidance for others that my projector nature can see or can understand, or downloads during my quiet kind of solitude, and then people around the world get to choose to invite me in, and people just like yourself get to choose to invite me in and to listen whenever it suits you energetically. Like, there's no forcing, there's no hustling, and it's just this beautiful symbiotic thing that exists, and it's so much fucking fun. Like, each week it's so fun and it's so awesome, and that's what I love about kind of this modern paradigm, right? We're able to do these things that just so perfectly lean into our natural gifts and our talents. So the next bit I just wanted to dive into is a little bit about what goes on, I guess, inside my specific 2 defined centers, and just to touch on that before I kind of wrap this episode up. So in terms of living in my experience and living in my own human design, because obviously the things that we have defined in our charts are the things that we have more consistent access to. We have a bit of a shield up, right? So in contrast to the white space where we have color in our chart, means that we're a bit more shielded from the outside world. We've got our own kind of like energetic buffer going on. So we're kind of like, we're cool within our own little center there. So for my 2 defined centers, the Ajna or third eye, the green downward facing triangle, which is your mind consciousness, with having that defined, it's a busy place, right? Like, there is a constant chatter going on inside there. And this is where I spend, admittedly, a lot of my life. Like, I can feel like I have had entire conversations with myself. And in the kind of, I guess, negative expression of this growing up was that because I would get stuck in there a lot, I would end up replaying scenarios like over and over and over again, right? So, that feeling where something's stuck on a loop inside your head, especially when that something has been maybe something that wasn't so great or was something negative that happened, it would very much get stuck on a loop in there and like replaying it over and over. And so that was one of the things to have to learn better strategies to help myself with, because it was truly something that was going on for me. So I had to learn how to manage it. It's not necessarily a negative thing, because it allows me plenty of space to share my gifts. Like, that is ultimately where my gift comes from, being inside my own mind. But you have to learn to be able to decondition and flush out the stuff that you don't need to hold on to, that isn't worth replaying over and over again. So, and because having your mind defined, right, it's noisy, it's busy, there's always a conversation going on inside your own head. So that's why tools and tricks like, like tools like meditating, to calm and just ground that part that is working in overdrive and needs some TLC is really important. But honestly, with a defined Ajna, it's fucking hard. And anyone I talk to with a chart who has got this defined in their chart, like, it's just nice to be able to reassure people that, like, if someone tells you that meditating is really simple, it's not when you've got a defined Ajna, and it's fucking hard because you've got so much going on up there. So when I say that I'm meditating, if I ever share about that, please just know that the struggle is real. Like, I kind of like to joke and say that for me, inside my mind, when I try and sit and meditate, especially if I'm out of practice, it's like there's a band of fucking monkeys in there having a riot, like, on the daily, right? So once I do get into my practice and I get it going regularly, it becomes easier, it becomes better, it's less noisy, right? So I know it's beneficial. I know it is a hugely important tool to use, but if I let it slip and I get out of practice, it is a hell of a time getting back into it again. And now that I know that about myself and I can empower myself about that, I do take it a bit easier on myself, right? So the tool that comes along with this, or the strategy, that you can use when you know something like meditation is important, is to just like give yourself permission to do it in the way that suits you, right? So I use guided meditations now because I know that helps keep me on track, right? And I give myself grace if I fall off the meditation bandwagon. And so I also add in other things like practicing mindfulness as much as I can, trying to stay in the now, because those are also types of meditation techniques, right? So it just again comes back to, with human design, understanding that the powerful nature of understanding your own self on that deep level, because you can suddenly just let go of all the stuff that doesn't matter, right? So who cares if Susan can meditate for 20 minutes on her own with just her mind sitting in a quiet room? Because I certainly can't. And I don't know about you, but who cares if she can? Because knowing your own design means that you can just come back to your own truth and go, well, okay, she's able to do that, but she probably and most definitely has a completely different design to me, and that's okay. So really, at the end of the day, I guess it kind of always doubles down on that fact of learning to be okay with yourself and finding peace with your own truth. And that's one of the things that I guess I am the most passionate about, is empowering others. And that's why I know I'm here as a guide and a role model for other people going through their own human design journeys. So I just see it now everywhere around me, like the places where human design is so needed, the relationships, the interactions that could be so much smoother with just that knowledge and that understanding of how their designs are interacting with each other. And I also see where it is so important to empower yourself to know how to use it in your daily life, without needing to be always working with someone or constantly needing support to understand it. So that's my big mission, is to go, okay, I like wholeheartedly want the world to be able to know and understand their own human design without needing someone to hold their hand to be able to put it into practice, because it's a tool that is so beautiful and so much of a gift to be able to use. And that's why I just know I've got a huge amount of work to do, right, to keep going with my mission to help people like yourself understand your own human design and be able to live in it every day. So I know I'm the facilitator, but my big goal and dream is that you will have all the tools you need yourself, within yourself, to live your own human design experiment. And then my role and my blessing and my gift is to be able to cheer you on from my little projector perch while you're able to live beautifully and flourish in your own human design. And I get to kind of cheer you on from the sidelines from my little beachside hermit lifestyle. So to wrap that episode up, I really hope you enjoyed that little share and that little bit of insight into my own design and how I use it and how it kind of looks in a few different parts of my life. And I know, and I feel like as I was putting this episode together, that I could dive into so much more. I could go into so many more things. I could go even just deep dive into projector strategy with you and to share all the ways I use it and say everything from my business to my day-to-day life. So I think I will work away on pulling an episode together like that to share with projectors specifically. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. You mean the world to me. And as I sit here each week talking away into my microphone from my little studio in my garden, I hope you have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world and wherever you might be listening on in. And until next time, my friends, stay safe, love yourself, up that self-care. And if you haven't done it already, get on to looking into your human design. I've added a link in the show notes with this episode that you can just click straight on through to, and you can find yours out in a few really easy clicks and steps. So all my love. See you on the next episode.